surreal and devastating scene over here, something like I've never seen before.
Harold, exactly where are you in filing this report?
Dan, I'm at a subway station. I just ran down the stairs. I didn't even look at it. It's right around the corner from the World Trade Center, and I'm kind of waiting for that smoke and debris to blow away to go back upstairs. But it's just an unbelievable situation here.
Well, Harold, if I may, take a deep breath, take a series of deep breaths, and then let me ask you, have you seen any indication that would tend to confirm these reports, which have been growing in intensity, that a section of the World Trade Center has collapsed onto the street below? Do you see any confirmation of that in any direction?
That is true, Dan. That's what we were all running from. We heard the building coming down, and that's what we were running from. Literally, people ran out of their shoes trying to get out of the way of this thing.
Well, one can certainly understand that. So Harold Dow, our man on the scene, reports that he can confirm that a section, we do not know how large a section of one of the World Trade Center towers has collapsed into the street below. Now, for those of you who are joining us in progress, it's Dan Rather at CBS News World Headquarters in New York with Russ Mitchell at my side here, covering a breaking news situation. 2 airplanes, one just before 9 o'clock Eastern Time, the other shortly later. One each crashed into one each of the World Trade Center buildings here in New York. Something, we know not exactly what has happened at the Pentagon in Washington. There are unconfirmed reports that a plane crashed into the Pentagon and started a large fire there. There have been some people injured at the Pentagon. How many, we do not know. David Martin on the scene at the Pentagon says he saw several people injured. There are other, and I repeat, totally unconfirmed reports at Pentagon that it wasn't a plane that went into the Pentagon, it was a helicopter, and then there are yet third versions of this that say a plane and a helicopter may have crashed into the Pentagon. But all of that is in the area of unconfirmed. Fact, something started to fire with some explosion at the Pentagon not long after the 2 World Trade Centers were hit by separate aircraft. Mika Brzezinski is downtown. Mika?
Yep. Hi, Mika Brzezinski here reporting from PS 89. It's near the scene of the now collapse of what we believe to be the Tower Number 1 of the World Trade Center. I was standing with CBS News correspondent Byron Pitts. We were coordinating our crews in a crowd of people near the corner of Murray Avenue and the West Side Highway when the collapse occurred, and literally plumes of smoke and gases as the collapse happened, I'm sure you're seeing in the video, began to roll our way, and that is when the crowd went wild. People just began to run. Our live trucks shut down, crews were running, reporters were running, people were running, and the cops literally were just waving their arms saying, go, go, go. We are inside the school right now, actually inside a small room, trying to stay clear of the crowds that are trying to get out of the way, and also the evacuation of this school. School officials here are trying to get everybody out of the building in an orderly fashion as quickly as possible. But again, there is so much confusion out on the street. It is literally chaos out there. We've got a short timeline here. The school right now is now putting on the intercom where kids need to go to assemble classes near Chambers Street. They're trying to organize the classes and get these kids out of here as safely as possible. Right now we're dealing with the air because of the plumes of smoke and gases. Byron pointed out to me we needed to move quickly because the smoke that was rolling our way and the debris as well was very thick and it could be very dangerous. It was already a chaotic situation before the collapse happened, and this is just piling more danger and damage on top of what was already a very chaotic situation. We're dealing with a wide range of emotions out here on the street as well. You've got typical New Yorkers. I actually ran with my producer, Mike Noble, about a mile to get here before we hopped onto a golf cart and got someone to bring us right up to the scene. And what we saw were people who were walking nonchalantly. It's New York, kind of looking back at what they could see, and others completely upset, crying. One woman had to get off her bike because she was so upset. I think a lot of people in a situation like this, even if they're not close to it, all of a sudden feel that fear. They feel that that maybe this was deliberate. What is happening in our city? But in a sense, right now, we are dealing with a situation where two planes hit the World Trade Towers, one after the other. We're not necessarily sure how and why it happened. You've got some witnesses saying that they saw one of the planes, I believe the DC-3, or maybe it was the smaller plane. I think it was the smaller plane that appeared to be flying directly toward the tower, but no one can be sure right now. What we've got is hundreds of ambulances, hundreds of fire crews. I mean, I could not count the fire trucks and the crews that passed us as I was running to the scene, blaring their sirens, trying to get there as quickly as possible, trying to get to those injured and to the casualties. At this point, nobody knows how many casualties, but it appears there will be some. Back to you.
Mika Brzezinski reporting from the area of Manhattan where you see these smoke and flames. The two twin World Trade Centers hit this morning separately by aircraft. Now, let me underscore that New York is not burning. One section of New York has had a terrible thing happen, what President Bush has called an apparent terrorist attack. And in Washington, D.C., an apparent terrorist attack. I underscore the word apparent terrorist attack on the Pentagon. CBS News veteran Defense Department correspondent David Martin is on the telephone from the area. David, do you hear us?
The White House.
We're having some difficulty bringing in David Martin. These pictures from outside the Pentagon are of people who were injured in the explosion and fire. There, we're trying to bring in David Martin, who is on the grounds of the Pentagon. As you might well understand, cell phone traffic has been extremely busy this morning, so busy that it makes it difficult to get any cell phone communication in Manhattan, New York, and for that matter in Washington itself. So while we try to get David Martin up, you're looking at a live picture from the Pentagon in Washington. Keep in mind, two airplanes hit one each of the Twin Towers World Trade Centers in New York, and in the Pentagon, nobody knows what started it. Nobody knows for sure what started it. Apparently, a plane and or a helicopter was flown into the Pentagon, but that's not been confirmed. There was an explosion and fire in the Pentagon. These pictures have to do with casualties injured at the Pentagon. If anybody has been killed, we are not yet aware of it. We go to Jim Stewart in our Washington Bureau. Jim?
And here in Washington, the police now have closed down the Capitol, the House and Senate. They have closed down the Justice Department. The World Bank has been emptied. We're told that the Metropolitan Police Department of Washington now is on full alert with the anticipation that there could be additional targets if in fact someone is targeting sites in the nation's capital. We are told that the FAA has grounded all flights, all domestic flights in the United States. One building that has not closed down is the FBI. The FBI has established an emergency command post in the center of its building. It's a contained area that is presumably safe from bombs, they believe, and FBI officials have been there now for the last 2 hours trying to sort out exactly what is going on. I can tell you, Dan, that the working theory here is that this is the work of terrorists. They specifically believe this is the work of Osama bin Laden. This is pure speculation at the moment. As recently as yesterday, Dan, when we were making our rounds on what the latest terrorist threats were in the United States and abroad, there was no hint whatsoever that there was a threat against any domestic target in the United States. There had not been any domestic intercepts of messages. There had been no sense that there were people here who should not be here. The feeling was that there were threats against targets overseas, but not here in the United States. They tell me, frankly, that there is a roadmap, a blueprint, if you will, for precisely what happened today. And that was signed by Ramzi Youssef. This is the bomber who was involved in the World Trade Center originally and who had plans to hijack aircraft and target buildings in the United States, specifically the CIA. Mr. Youssef, of course, was captured by the FBI. He's incarcerated here in the United States. But this is precisely the game plan that was talked out some 7 to 8 years ago by terrorists associated with Osama bin Laden. One note of concern here at the FBI already is that their field office, Dan, in New York is located at 26th and Federal. That is very, very close to the World Trade Center. Judging from the pictures here, my guess is that they have probably been incapacitated themselves and they'll have to move elsewhere in the short term. Dan?
Jim Stewart in our Washington Bureau. The top half of one World Trade Center building has collapsed and portions of the building have fallen onto the street below. Now, Mika Brzezinski is in that part of Manhattan where the World Trade Centers are located. We pick up her eyewitness reports now. Mika?
Dan, with the collapse now that we witnessed here firsthand, you get a sense there of not only the chaos that is here on the streets of what happened with the two planes that hit the World Trade Towers, but also the depth of the disaster and the loss here of life. I'm sitting here huddled in a small room in PS 89 right near the scene where this school actually has been evacuated right now, and we're huddled by the phone trying to get information to you. And Byron Pitts and I were standing right in plain view of the collapse, and Byron counted 7 people jumping from the building. So you get a sense now of not just the disaster, the visual disaster that you're dealing with and the possibility of casualties, but you get a sense of a massive, at this point, loss of life. There was also mass chaos on the street when this happened. There were crowds of people being held back by police about 2 blocks from the scene, and what we had was just a rampage of people trying to get away, because after that collapse, you can see from the video the plumes, the billowing, the rolling smoke and gases and debris literally flying in the air after the reverberations of the collapse. People just started to run. There were those who were there just to look at it, just to watch what was happening, some even, into it for the excitement value. And their emotions turned from excitement to complete fear and horror that they too might be hurt in this. And of course, there's the fears for the people who were inside the building, the people who Byron saw jump, but also who was underneath there, who might have been closer to the scene. Because I'm telling you, you hear me? Can you all hear me? We're being evacuated here from the building, and I'll just tell you real quickly, when that collapse happened, if it had been on our side of the building, we would have been covered with that debris. That collapse spread far and wide, and the crowds that were nearby to look at this, I don't think we're far enough from the scene. Now, I'm inside a school, which is 3-4 blocks from where this whole disaster happened, and they were methodically trying to get the kids out of here and get them out of here fast. They saw the rolling smoke and the debris coming toward the school, and it was not just a matter of being, a couple of yards away from it. It was get the kids out of here to a different place and quickly. Get your classes together and get them out of here and meet somewhere else. And they had the intercom system going wild here. Cops were running through the halls, and Byron and I were able to get into a small office here where we could get to a phone. But right now we are in an area that is completely evacuated, and we're talking to the NYPD right now about what to do and where to be at this point. I don't know if they're going to let us stay on this phone, but I will tell you, and I'm sure, Dan, as you've been reporting, 50,000 people work at the World Trade Center complex, and at this point there is a severe fear of loss of life at this point and massive casualties. You've got traffic at a complete standstill, and obviously flights in the area have been suspended. We've got a cop here on the scene. Were you actually here? Were you here when this happened, officer?
Yes, I
Can you
that it was set on fire.
tell me exactly where you were and what you saw? Can you do that? Okay, the cop right now is working on other things. Sorry about that. We're just trying to get a sense of what happened. I'm sure you've heard a lot of different accounts from different views of this. You've got 2 towers on fire, and now the one that has literally lost a part of the top of the building. And Byron and I were trying to figure out, was it the top quarter of the building, the top 8? It was a massive section of the building, so massive that people who were inside the building still alive were jumping. And at this point, what we are dealing with, I'm just looking out a closed door here at the chaos out in the hall here. People are still trying to figure out where to go. They're asking the cops how to get out of here, where's the safest place to go. And what we're trying to do right now is keep a handle on the chaos here, keep a handle on where people are, and we're going to stay on the story. Right now, Dan, I'll throw it back to you.
Mika Brzezinski covering at the scene of the Twin Towers of the World Trade Center. If you're asking how many people injured, how many people killed, the answer is we do not know. One portion of one of the Twin Towers of the World Trade Center here in New York has collapsed. Now, American Airlines Flight 11, a Boeing 767, flying from Boston to Los Angeles is reported by the Associated Press to have reported a terrorist takeover in flight. We have not confirmed that on our own. This is according to the Associated Press. Assumptions can be made all over the place, but the fact is we don't know what airplanes hit the World Trade Centers. We do know that they were two separate airplanes.